I may have gone too far in a few places.
Here we are. After a whole year since Asylum, we have finally reached the last game in the series. You can all see how long this video is, so let's just jump right in, as today's the day we finally figure out, can you beat Batman Arkham Knight without taking any damage? We start things off like usual, playing on normal difficulty and putting on the subtitles. Oh, and we also violently incinerate the corpse of the Joker just to make sure there's no possible way he can come back as the villain for the 4th time. As we are thrust into the game, much like Arkham City, we don't actually begin as Batman, but instead as Officer Owens. You know, everyone's favourite character. As we go to apprehend our first criminal, things don't go so well as we ingest some of Scarecrow's happy fumes and all of a sudden it becomes a Halloween special. Lucky for me, none of these fake gremlins can stand up to the very real bullets and go down pretty quickly. Officer Owens then gets overwhelmed by a scripted event, and we get to see just what we're dealing with. Scarecrow, not being happy with the fact that he was absent from the last 2 games, not counting an Easter egg in Arkham City, has decided to take up the mantle as the main antagonist. He does this by threatening the people of Gotham with chemical weapons, but rather than just unleash the toxins now, he decides to be nice and let the majority of the population evacuate the city. This makes our job as Batman a lot easier, as it means anyone who isn't a cop is free for the punching. Speaking of Batman, we now finally meet him and he is as tall, brooding and intimidating as ever, along with being 100% more wet because nothing says graphical fidelity just like rain. After readjusting to the controls, I meet up with Jim Gordon, who is on to his 3rd voice actor by this point and appears to be aging backwards. He informs me of how dire the situation is and we immediately zip off to go save some police officers. This is of course accomplished by beating up everyone within a 20-foot radius. The game kind of just assumes you've played the others in the series, as you actually have access to the majority of Batman's moves and abilities from Arkham City right from the get-go. Are you taking notes, Metroid? What this means is that you're fairly versatile, and as such, small groups of thugs never stood a chance. We then save the officer in the nick of time and realise it's time to call in the most device part of the game, the Batmobile. To address this now, I actually really enjoy the Batmobile segments in this game. Sure, there are a lot of them, but I always find them enjoyable in a casual playthrough. You may have noticed I said in a casual playthrough. That is because these high-speed chase sections are doing wonders to flare up my anxiety, seeing how a single stray rocket is cause for a reset. That is something I'll address really quickly. I saw a few people question whether or not damage to the Batmobile would count as damage towards Batman. Sure, while the argument could be made that Batman isn't getting harmed physically, let's not forget he's going to have to pay for any damages to that car, so that's gotta hurt on a financial level to some degree. Anyway, after some reckless driving, it doesn't take long to stop the car, get some info, and break a few bones. We then follow up on said information, and rather than finding Scarecrow, we find Poison Ivy.
I told you to go to your show.
This leads to another pretty easy fight, as we are still in the opening hour of the game after all, but more importantly is what follows, our first taste of tank combat. For the time, combat with the basic variety of unmanned tanks is simple enough. I just take things much slower than I probably need to, as I use the buildings as cover and only peek out occasionally to return fire until I'm the last one standing. Weirdly enough, the tank combat training then takes place after your first tank battle, and then it's time to fight more tanks. How many times am I going to say tank in this video? Thanks to the homing missiles Batman decided to have packed into his car, this fight is over in no time, and then after a little reckless driving, I drop Ivy off with the GCPD. While here, I then run to the evidence room and take/steal back Batman's remote electrical charge gun, and then I let him sulk for a bit about his dead ninja girlfriend. As we go to leave, Benjamin Button informs us of 3 different side quests that need doing. I call them side quests, but in actuality, if I want more upgrade points, I'm probably going to need to do a few of them throughout the story. My options right now are either save some firefighters, investigate a corpse, or track down the Riddler. Considering my current stipulations, pulling teeth would be more pleasant than attempting one of Riddler's racetracks, so to that end, I decide to rescue the firefighter. I do this by punching more criminals, or in this one's case, severing his skull from his spine. After saving the hostage, I realise I'm pretty close to the dead body, so I decide to go give it a look. This just has me scan 3 parts of their body, and just like that, a free upgrade token. Putting aside my CSI duties for now, I hop back in Batman's car and head for the clock tower to continue the plot. I may also have brutally murdered some people on the way, but that's neither here nor there. At the tower, we meet Oracle, and after some brainstorming, figured the best way to find Scarecrow is to repurpose the antenna at the movie studio. We do this by destroying the city, attempting to jump in Batman's car, failing said jump, driving across and then up a building, and to top it all off using the Batmobile as a giant battery. We now need a microwave tower to properly triangulate the position, which also leads us very nicely into our very first stealth section. It's about the same as before, which makes sense, don't change what isn't broken. But then the game decides to kick it up a notch, as when we retrieve our new suit, we get a slew of upgrades, the most important of which is the new Fear multi-takedown. This lets us take out up to 3 enemies instantly from stealth before needing to recharge. As you can see on screen, it's a pretty great tool for clearing out a room. After that spectacle, I rescue the hostage and he has an eerily familiar voice.
They said you were quick, but I never saw anyone take down 3-armed guys like that. Unbelievable.
You're safe now. I'll send someone to pick you up.
My brother died at the Battle of Hoover Dam. You're desecrating a war memorial.
Batman then uses one of his infinitely respawning batarangs to find out Scarecrow is at the Ace Chemicals plant, so it's off to punch some more evildoers. On the way, I also stumbled over another one of them corpses. Not sure how else to work that into the script, so here you go. Arriving at Ace Chemicals and we finally meet the man himself, Jason Todd Red Hood Arkham Knight. It's quite the mouthful. Because Rocksteady didn't want to make this game only an hour long, Scarecrow chimes in and stops the knight from just outright killing us, and so now it's into the plant itself to start rescuing some hostages. To find their locations, however, we need to access a nearby terminal, which we can't do until after I take out these armed thugs. There's only 5 of them, plus the area they're in has barely any clear lines of sight, so taking them all down is a piece of cake. The first hostage I head for isn't actually alive, so I quickly just fear take down 3 of the militia guards, crack one's head with a light bulb, and then stun beat down the last one. This wasn't an entirely pointless fight though, as while the hostage is dead, we do find the controls to open the gate and as such, in rolls the Batcar. This then leads to another easy tank battle where the only thing worth mentioning is that it introduces a slightly more difficult unmanned tank that has more health and fires 3 shots in a cone. Speaking of introducing new enemy variants, after I take out some armed and unarmed guards with a creative use of the smoke grenade and fear takedown, we get reacquainted with some old friends. Ninjas. I'm not sure if it's to do with the more responsive gameplay or me just being more familiar with this game than the others, but this time around these guys aren't really all that intimidating and I'll go down relatively fast. I then use the crane to set up a ramp for later and then decide to do a drive-by on some unsuspecting guards with the Batmobile. The game's namesake then decides to show up once again, but I don't have time for his monologuing, so I unleash the power of the bat gun on his men while he makes a quick getaway, and then proceed to go full Batman on those that are still conscious by using a nice mix of punches, Batmobile and gadgets to clear them all out. I then use that ramp that I set up a few minutes ago to play more World of Tanks as I just funnel them down this tunnel for easy pickings. I think after this I was meant to have a fight that served as an introduction to the medic class of militia, but a few well placed rubber bullets let me skip that encounter. Next is a pretty simple puzzle involving the car and an elevator that really hammers home the point that Batman would be pretty screwed in this game if that car was in for repairs over Halloween. At the bottom of the elevator shaft we have our first fight containing both ninjas and medics. Thankfully you have the advantage of starting the fight with a fear takedown, so I use that to take out the medic to simplify things and then just start throwing crates around to disorientate the ninjas. We then manage to save the last hostage, and once we're back outside in the rain, we see another variant of the unmanned drone, and this one is a helicopter. They're a bit more complex to fight than the tanks, but I still have pretty big indicators about where they're going to fire, so avoiding them when it's by itself is fairly straightforward. I then return the hostage to the Commissioner, cause more property damage, and then engage in the biggest brawl of the game yet. Granted, it's nothing compared to say the Gladiator Pit fight in Arkham City, as while there is a lot of them, I'm able to get through the majority of the fight by just abusing the environmental takedowns. Also, this man is dead, you cannot convince me otherwise. Finally, all that's left is one last easy stealth section, and then it's face to face with Scarecrow. Scarecrow can't really do much to us here, but he does manage to slip away in the confusion after he informs us that Barbara Gordon is about to be kidnapped. Batman then deals with this news the only way he knows how, by attempting to blow himself up by reenacting that one scene from Resident Evil 1. However, in the process, we do manage to huff down some of Scarecrow's special gas, and that leads to Joker, once again stealing the spotlight from what would have been an interesting story. We don't have time to ponder this for long though, as we are suddenly thrust into a flashback where we investigate why Batman has kidnapped all these wannabe Jokers, as well as a random jump scare. We are then just as quickly pulled back into the modern day and barely escape the exploding factory. First things first, I return to the GCPD to inform Gordon that his daughter has been kidnapped. As you might expect, he doesn't take this news very well, so the two of us go to investigate, and in the process we have another chase scene with the militia. I mentioned before how these are pretty nerve-wracking, this one more so, as trying to keep track of 2 missiles while driving is not really my strong suit. As a result, I take one of them straight to the windscreen, meaning we now have our first death. Restarting this section actually makes things a lot easier, as I'm able to immediately boost and take out one of the vehicles. The problem is I end up having to reset a second time, as while I end up knocking the second one off the road and it disappears, the game doesn't register it as destroyed, and due to Gordon getting too far away, I fail the mission. Third time's the charm, however, as I do just like I said and ram the first one off the road straight off the bat. Ha! I then play less recklessly and take out the second one with 2 non-lethal missiles. Realizing Gotham is probably worse than hell itself, I offer to drive the Commissioner the rest of the way. God, I sure hope he's a fan of tank-on-tank combat. This then leads to another stealth section. This is also where the Arkham Knight will start chiming in with advice for his soldiers when you take them out, such as telling them to stick together or check any of the oddly placed gargoyles around the place. It's not much tougher than the sections that have come before it, however. That said, I do get spotted at one point, and if it wasn't for this game's incredibly generous reflex system when you get seen by the enemy, Batman would have been riddled with bullets. So I just retreat for a moment, and then when they least suspect it, I return with a smoke bomb followed by many punches and kicks. Next up, we get another dose of fear toxin hallucinations, which just lets people get the Cliff Notes version of the killing joke before Gordon arrives. We then tell him that his daughter works for Batman, and then we get decked in the face. This doesn't count, by the way. This is a cutscene. Batman gets hurt a lot in this game via cutscenes. We then watch some security footage to find out where the Arkham Knight took Oracle, and from that we can follow the tire tracks all the way to this bridge, where we then must temporarily proceed on foot because the plot demands it. Guess what? More stealth for Batman. We also now get our first taste of militia-controlled mini-drones. Not really much to say about it here, as I just take out the operator first and the drone comes crashing down. Next, I take down a guard all by himself with an inverted takedown to draw the attention of the others, and once all 4 of them are all lined up for me, I just once again abuse the power of the fear multi-takedown. I then take out the last 2 with more inverted takedowns, and just when I thought I'd be able to drive my car across the bridge, the Riddler shows up to announce he's kidnapped Catwoman, and it is mandatory for me to go see him. Thankfully, it's not that bad, as I don't have to solve any riddles. In fact, this is one of the few times we get to show off the dual hero feature, in which I get to play as both Batman and Catwoman at the same time while I fight these robots. This makes things pretty easy, as while I could technically let the hero I'm not controlling do all the work, I prefer the aggressive approach, as now we have access to dual takedowns, which are completely separate from our normal combat takedowns, meaning we can clean things up twice as fast. Once the robots are scrapped, I'm egged on by the Riddler to go see what crazy scheme he has in store for me, but by this point I can now lower the bridge, so I abandon Catwoman to do what else? More tank battles. After I clear the streets of all of them, I follow up on those tire tracks from earlier and get to engage in one of the only good parts of Arkham Origins that managed to make its way into this game. After we finish being a detective, I decide to kill some time by doing some side missions, just so I can get more upgrade points. The most obvious side quest I decide to go do is that of Azrael's Trials. Each of these is a combat trial in which we get to play as Azrael, where the only stipulation is you have to beat a group of enemies without getting hit. I don't think I need to explain why that makes sense for this video. He plays pretty much identically to Batman, so there isn't a whole lot to say here. After I'm finished though, I notice I'm close to another one of those firefighters, so I take some time to dispense a little justice. May as well, as at the end of the day it's free experience and each rescued firefighter is a win upgrade token on its own, and that's never bad. With more people left to die in the cold streets, I continue with the main quest as I head for Wayne Tower to track down the location of the Knight's base. But of course, we can't enter a new area without another tank battle. From this point on, I think I'm only going to be mentioning the tank battles that stand out or end up being particularly difficult, otherwise this video is going to start feeling very repetitive. Making our way into the underground base on foot, and we get to have a sequence that feels right out of Arkham Asylum, as it features copious amounts of line launchers and remote controlled batarangs. As we begin sneaking our way under the floorboards, we end up coming face to face with the Arkham Knight once again in another cutscene. Here is where things become a little interesting. You see, he shoots us, again in a cutscene, and we don't actually see our health bar go down, so okay, that doesn't count. But then when we go back into the gameplay and the Brute appears, I get carried away with the beatdown that I end up going outside of the room and get shot by one of the drones and have to reset. Okay, not a big deal, it's only the 3rd death. However, when I load back in, I notice that Batman is already missing a chunk from his health as if I'd taken damage. But this wasn't the case on the previous attempt. As you can see, the health bar isn't on screen, which tends to indicate you're at full health. At this point, I'm not quite sure what's going on, and being distracted by the situation, I end up getting stabbed by one of the ninjas, so everybody, welcome to death number 4. After this reset, I managed to get through this encounter unscathed if we don't count the aforementioned missing piece of health. But then, whenever I take out the last man and was going to get ready to say I failed the run, the end fight statistics say that I beat the encounter without getting hit, or in other words, without taking damage. So, I'm just going to go with what the game is telling me and say that I did manage to get through without getting hit. But at the same time, I can understand the argument against it as it's a pretty odd situation. Once I managed to unpickle my brain from that experience, we call him the Bat Uber, and now it's time for another one of those overly stressful car chase scenes I hate so much. As expected, I get shot down with an RPG almost instantly, so that's nice. Next try, I decided I'm just going to focus on using the turbo and strafe while they're reloading the rockets, rather than trying to use my immobilizing missiles. What shocks me is this ends up working as I violently ram every one of them off the road with little to no remorse. Keeping the bloodthirsty Batman going, I threaten to run over this man's head for some information, and he of course obliges to this psychopath pointing us in the direction of Penguin. This is when we meet up with Nightwing, who gives us a gun that turns off other guns. Putting it to good use, I disable the nearby weapons and then proceed to do what Batman does best. Once they've all stopped breathing, I follow those that are left in the van back to Penguin's hideout. This leads to another stealth section where the guards are far too spaced out from one another to ever notice when one of them goes missing. Well, Danny DeVito manages to escape amidst the chaos, but we're saved in the nick of time, which leads us into our second section where we get to play as 2 heroes. Not much to say here, as like before, having access to essentially double the amount of combat takedowns will trivialize just about any fight. I did get a good laugh out of watching Nightwing just glide backwards across the floor here to take out the last thug. With that, we blow up the Penguin's weapons cache, have a short section where we need to take out some thugs and turrets with the Batmobile before we leave, where this somehow doesn't kill anyone, and then it's time to head to island number 3 to find a way to get Batman on these blimps and in the process hopefully reenact this picture. Just before we engage in some boarding action, there's a short but sweet stealth section that really just serves as an introduction into a new type of unit that can track you when you use your detective mode. While that sounds like it can be annoying, it's very easily countered as when they're scanning for your location, they stand completely still and check their device, so this pretty much lets you sneak up on them and take them out while they're distracted. After this, Lucius gives us the remote hacking device, and now we can unlock the doors and enter the blimp. The hacking device has gotten a considerable buff from the last game, as now you can use it to hack enemy drones, and then use said drones to shock the hell out of anyone unfortunate enough to walk past. Surprise, we are then met with another new enemy variant in the form of brutes that have arm blades. This really means nothing, as like I choose to do, you can just dodge over their heads and then proceed with a beatdown or takedown, and they're finished off within seconds. The game then decides to turn it up a notch by putting you in a scenario with one of these new brutes, but he's also accompanied by the single largest horde of enemies up to this point in the story. If this had been any other game in this series, I probably would have struggled here, but as mentioned before, Knight's controls have been fine-tuned to the point where everything flows so seamlessly that even encounters like this are child's play if you have even a little experience with this series. Or maybe it's because I have easily over 300 hours in this game in particular, but who knows, moving on. I then temporarily rescue the owner of the Hindenburg before Batman succumbs to the fear toxin and gets a brief look at the Rocksteady writer's room, and when I come to, it's revealed that our rescue attempt was all for nothing as he slowly gets taken away. I should probably mention a while ago we hacked into the blimp and can now swing it from side to side, which is really just used for throwing these crates around this one puzzle that, despite how simple it is, always gives me trouble. When I'm through being an idiot, I get treated to another stealth section and it's nothing too out of the ordinary. That said, I did manage to get an upgrade that lets me use a disruptor on the guards to track my detective mode and causes them to get incapacitated if they find me, which really just doubles down on the point of how useless they really are. I pretty much then just stay in the floor grates for this fight, only popping out to do multi-takedowns and stealth knockouts. I then get another fun detective moment where I have to scan Stag's fingerprints, and once we have those, we can access his computer to control the airship's turrets to destroy the other two turrets on the second ship, allowing us to get across. Returning to where we had that massive fight, we see the issue with Batman not killing people firsthand, as the room is partially repopulated, only now some of the mooks are electrified. All this means is they need to be hit with the backlaw before you can punch them, so nothing too frustrating. I found a minor glitch in where the guard continued to have the electricity around him even after using the claw, but thankfully the game registered it as being gone, so it didn't actually hurt me to punch him. I then glide over to blimp number 2 where I have a rather anticlimactic fight with some ninjas, and because this game is going a mile a minute, we are once again introduced to another type of enemy, Minigunners. Their whole deal is they can't be taken out with stealth, and instead you need to get up close and personal and land a flurry of punches, all the while avoiding getting smacked by their gun. This means under most circumstances you'll be taking them out last in stealth situations. I also have my first stealth reset as I was careless when trying to take out someone and completely missed this guard with a shotgun. Next time I once again skulk around under the floor grates to the point where I should probably consider changing my name to Ratman. Regardless, it pays off and I'm able to take out all the guards and then proceed to do the beatdown on the big man. With them out of the picture, I knock out Stag and then manage to catch up to Scarecrow. At this point, Mark Hamill steps into the recording booth and we have a much more brutal Batman. After Batman comes back down from his fever dream, Scarecrow decides to contradict himself by implying he isn't running away, and then he runs away. Alright, no time to think about that as we still need to find Barbara Gordon, which we do in record time, and then she dies. Well, that's not good. I will just ignore the fact that this very fake Joker in Batman's head was able to move the very real gun on the table next to her. To find a cure for the fear toxin, we need to do something that I very much don't want to do, and that's let Poison Ivy out of her cell. It's easy enough to keep her in line, I suppose. If she tries something, Batman can just go cut down a tree. As we leave the GCPD, the game now decides to combine two of its major gameplay elements into one, as we must now partake in some tank stealth. I'm not kidding. After scanning for weaknesses on one of the new tanks, we discover it can only be taken out with a shot in the back, so now, despite being in a very, very loud car, we can sneak up behind it, wait for the shot to line up, and take it out all the while it has no idea. After I take out this first batch, me and Ivy then head over to Miyagani Island for more absurd tank stealth. And once that's over, it's off to Wayne Tower where we get assaulted by drones and it's back to our run-of-the-mill tank battles. To switch things up just a little bit, Batman then goes hunting for the roots of a plant for Ivy, and when we find them, shockingly, we don't get an army of tanks dropped on our head, but instead need to take out a few common militia thugs. I end up getting carried away while trying to set up a smoke bomb fear multi-takedown combo that I get smacked by one of them and had to reset. Trying again, I decide to just fight them normally, as it seems to be when I try to get creative in scenarios like this is when I get hit. Sure enough, I'm able to clear them out rather quickly with no issues. With a job well done, the tree gets hard and I head back to the movie studios to berate Robin on his choice of costumes, as well as get the information on the militia's relay drone that allows me to rip something out of its insides that will now let me hack sentry turrets and some of the bigger unmanned drones. We get to test this out immediately on one of the nearby unmanned helicopters, which lets me hop on in and blow up one of the radar consoles linked to the massive missile launcher that is preventing me from calling in my overpriced vehicles. Radar number 2 should have been easier, but my hubris gets the better of me once again and I get stabbed. Being the stubborn person that I am, I once again try the smoke bomb strat from earlier and actually manage to pay attention and pull it off. This allows me to take out 5 of them immediately, and then from there I just beat down on the ninjas to build up takedowns to easily dispatch the brute, and then I can more than easily clear out the small fries. With both the consoles down, all that's left is to lower the barrier around the missile launcher, which just involves a stealth section where I'm pretty sure I glitched straight through a ladder to knock out this man. I could once again talk about the tank's stealth section that then occurred right after this, but I think the footage of this one just struggling to even move tells you everything you need to know about these gameplay segments going forward. At this point you'd be led to believe you may actually get to fight the Arkham Knight, but no, as you can see if you try to attack him here he just drops a smoke bomb and disappears before your very eyes. At the very least I knew this would happen, so I was able to get some use out of the fear takedown. After mopping up the goons I get back to the Batmobile and finally take out that missile launcher. The game then tries to coax me into doing some side missions, but if I start doing those now, this video would probably end up being over an hour long, and at that point who knows when it would have came out. Now, while I may not get sidetracked by optional quests, Batman apparently didn't get the same memo, as while we should be focusing on stopping Denethor from detonating a chemical weapon in the city, Batman decides that going to save Robin from the clutches of Harley is far more important, so in other words, it's back to the movie studios. It's like a trip down memory lane when we arrive, as Batman's back in his element as he gets to beat up emotionally compromised clowns. We get another new item for Batman's Belt of Wonders, as now we can mimic the voice of people in order to draw thugs away to quiet places where we can then choke them out without the fear of being interrupted. Speaking of fighting old friends, we finally get reintroduced to thugs with shields, who are honestly just as uninteresting as ever. Well, I say that, but one of them whacks me round the head pretty good, causing a reset. Making better use of Robin lets the following attempt go by without a hitch. As I am already on a bit of a clown punching spree, what's a few more? To that end, me and Robin set off to track down the 3 would-be Jokers. First up is Christine Bell, who to be honest is the only one we don't really confront directly. I give it a pass though, as this short-lived section is one of the more interesting stealth moments in the game, as you get to control both Batman and Robin to sneakily take down the thugs. It's also pretty cathartic being able to team up to take down stronger foes in a single hit. I really hope that Gotham Knights is like this. After they are dealt with, Robin and I go to open the door, and you can't see it, but I'm mashing the hell out of the counter button. Why? Simple. Christine runs out and attacks Robin, and if you don't counter it, he'll take damage. And seeing how this is a pseudo cutscene, I'm not sure if I would be able to reset afterwards. So in other words, if she hits me, it may have literally ended the run. On the way to Albert King, who serves as the more traditional boss fight out of the 3, Batman becomes sad as he gets random flashbacks of Jason Todd, and we as the players also get sad, as now it's pretty damn clear that the Arkham Knight is just discount Red Hood and not an original character like was teased. When it's time to face Albert, he actually managed to get the better of me twice, mainly because, despite remembering the majority of fights in the main story, I completely forgot that you can only damage him with dual takedowns. As they say, third time's the charm, as while I play super cautious, I still managed to rack up a sizable combo without ever being stopped. Turns out he's no smarter than your average brute. If you just evade over him as he's about to attack, he can't really do anything. So, using this to my advantage, I just wail on Harley's thugs to build up dual takedowns, and after a few minutes, deal the finishing blow, and very nearly get taken out by a random thug as I let my guard down. Last up is Johnny Charisma, who is by far the best one. If for nothing else, just imagining Mark Hamill singing this song in a recording booth puts a big smile on my face. So much so that I wait around after disarming the final bomb just to hear him sing. As we take out the final mini-Joker, Robin decides to antagonize Harley to open the gate while I wait underground to get the surprise attack on her. Why she doesn't just shoot Robin through the gap in the bars is beyond me, but whatever. The worst part about this is the little dialogue exchange between them is unskippable, so if you're like me and are prone to having your mind go blank in the worst possible situations and as a result get clocked in the face, you'll need to watch this all over again. Thankfully, this isn't an I told you to go to your cell situation, as I only have to retry this once. Also, I'm pretty sure with the speed and force in which Robin and I knock this thug through the air followed by the sudden stop that we may have in fact killed him. Not wanting to be around when the cops find the body, we make our way back to the main area, where it is revealed that old man Henry is in fact another Joker. However, Henry's career as a clown is cut short as he shoots himself when he figures out that Batman also has some of the Joker's blood in him. While I would genuinely be interested to see a what-if scenario in which Robin takes up the role of the main character at this point in the story, sadly for him this is Batman Arkham Knight, so we make true on the namesake and trap him in a cage, as now we go off once again to stop the Arkham Knight. This of course wouldn't be complete without another tank battle. Woo! Either I'm losing my tank combat prowess or this really is a difficult fight, as they managed to cause me to reset twice here. That is, until I just bring back the funnel strategy and they go down like dominoes. This is then immediately followed up by more tank stealth, and I don't need to go over that as it's pretty much the exact same as before. Turns out fighting all of those tanks might not have been the best idea, as the Arkham Knight then detonates that chemical weapon I briefly mentioned earlier, and now the whole city is all gross and for some reason reminds me of Pumpkin Hill from Sonic Adventure 2. Batman is of course not best pleased with this predicament, so I head back to the blimp from before to engage in a mix of combat and stealth, as well as toying around with this one random guard because I'm an asshole. I then make use of those fingerprints from earlier to locate Simon Stagg, who gives us an upgrade for the Batmobile because otherwise it won't be able to function properly in the toxic clouds. Always wanted to take any opportunity to be with his car in this game, Batman then jumps down into the highly dangerous chemicals to slowly pimp up his ride. Thankfully, breathing in all of these chemicals doesn't hurt, so we're able to hop back in the driver's seat with no issue and begin searching for the root system of a giant plant to help Ivy. If that sounds repetitive, it's because it is. To add to that, the place is guarded by more tanks. Moving on. Looking for the roots, it's pretty simple once you get past all the tanks, as all it involves is some very simple puzzles involving levers, ramps and the Batmobile. Once we wake up the plant, Ivy helps us take out more drones, and then it's on to an actually difficult tank stealth section, as now we have to avoid the Arkham Knight's super tank that has the Cloudburst chemical weapon attached to the front of it. Taking out the normal tanks with stealth is still fairly straightforward, you just wait for them to separate from the others and then you're good to go. However, when it comes down to a one-on-one fight between you and the Arkham Knight, things begin to get difficult. In fact, this is by far the most difficult part of the game so far in terms of trying to get past without taking damage. Essentially, unlike the other tanks, you need to hit the knights 4 times instead of just the once, which means after each hit you need to retreat. While that would normally not be an issue, the Arkham Knight's weapons have insane range and accuracy to the point where if you stay on a straight part of the road for more than a few seconds, it's almost certain that you're going to get shocked. When I do finally manage to take out all 4 parts, it felt more like luck than skill, but hold on, the fight's not over yet, as now you have to target the Cloudburst directly. On one occasion he did hit me at this part and I was terrified I'd have to start all over again, but thank goodness it just starts you at this second phase of the fight. I may actually have had more resets here, but in what may be the luckiest part of the run, the Arkham Knight got himself wedged inside this alleyway and could not do anything. So I just abused the situation and positioned myself and shot the Cloudburst until it was destroyed. I then watched Batman phase himself in the night through a building, we punch him for a bit, and then we go back to check on Ivy, who has sadly died. I would spend time to mourn her, but this video is going on long enough and I still haven't forgiven her for that boss fight in Asylum. In other good news, we pick up a signal from Gordon, who has decided he wants to be part of the plot once again. His signal seems to be coming from an abandoned shopping mall, so assuming he hasn't gone to buy clothes, the chances are it's a secret militia base, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what it is. Now, obviously hopping out of the vent and trying to fistfight all of these armed guards is a bad idea even on a normal run, but lucky for us, we can use the voice synthesizer from earlier to mimic the knight's voice to make them open the door, and from there, they all get a nice face full of rubber bullets. Now, all we need to do is drive the Batmobile in and we can continue on. Now all we need to do is slowly drive the Batmobile in and have it pretend to be Spider-Man for a bit while Batman goes to look for a way to turn off those fans. It's here where we finally get to meet the thugs with the stun sticks for the first time, even though we're about 2 hours away from the end of the game. I also finally put the electrical charge to good use here. Not only does it make short work of these guards, but in certain situations Batman can also use it as a portable electric chair. As usual, the game decides to follow up a new Mook's introduction by almost immediately pitting you in a fight with them where they're also supported by other variants of Mooks. There's also this one thug with a bomb vest, but it really doesn't mean anything other than a cool scene of Batman jumping into the fight and disarming the bomb. Oh, and Batman hallucinates and believes one of the thugs is a Joker. This doesn't mean anything, but I'm bringing it up just in case someone was wondering why he's just running around with this particular band of the militia. After that's out of the way, we can find the last generator for the fans, and then we can use the Batmobile to move the drill down so Batman and the car can get into position to move on. But wait, the Arkham Knight realizes that the previous boss fight wasn't enough, so after taking a quick break to watch Labyrinth, he is back with a vengeance. He does manage to get the better of me here as I fail to notice the wall in front of me and Batman gets atomized. Not to worry though, as this is actually a pretty simple fight, if you could even call it that to be fair. All you have to do is drive around this area and lead the knight into the areas with these bombs. Do this 3 times, he gets momentarily encased in some rubble, giving us time to head for the exit. The rocks don't hold him off for long however, and in perhaps the most shocking scene of the game, the Batmobile is killed. I get to take out my anger on some nearby militia, and just as I'm about to save the Commissioner, the Arkham Knight appears once again and tries to shock the audience with the reveal that he is in fact Jason Todd. While the reveal is probably the most underwhelming part of this game, the following stealth-oriented boss fight is at least one of the more interesting in the game, especially compared to the last two fights with the Knight, or I guess I should call him the Red Hood now. To damage him, you need to get directly beneath the gargoyle he perches himself on and then grapple up to him. The first time this is fairly easy, as all you have to do is make sure you don't stand directly in his line of fire. After you do this once, he then spices it up a bit by calling in some of his guards. You'd think taking out his guards first would be the way to go, but in actuality it's a lot easier if you just go after him, as once you catch up to him he'll disappear from the fight until you take down the rest of his soldiers. Taking them out is no more difficult than the majority of stealth encounters, so I just make use of takedowns, smoke bombs and the occasional set of escalators. This is then basically repeated for the last two phases, and then that's it, you knock him down and then he does a Batman and disappears before your very eyes. I then try to reconcile with Jim, but he isn't really interested and then gets floored. It doesn't take long to finish up this band of idiots, and when me and Jim get to the roof, it's revealed that Barbara is in fact still alive. I am shocked. Did I say shocked? I believe I meant shot. Scarecrow then tries to kill Barbara for the second time in this story, but thankfully we save her, and just when you would think that Batman's about to get turned into a red mist by the approaching tanks, it turns out we have a second Batmobile, with the only downside being it isn't painted black. I was expecting this to be a tough fight, but then the game makes a point of reminding you that this version now has all the upgrades for the Batmobile, including the ability to hack other drones. You also start off with a completely full weapon charge, so can instantly turn 4 of the other drones to your side, and from there, I just let them do the majority of the work while I mainly just focus on taking down any missiles coming my way. After the penultimate tank battle here, I take Oracle back to the GCPD, and as we're coming to the end, I have to head back to the clock tower to stop the militia from destroying the servers in the game's final stealth section. It's actually the same location we had to clear out earlier to let Jim into the clock tower. The major difference this time is that there's a lot more of them, as well as 2 snipers overlooking the whole thing. This isn't as bad as the snipers in the final level of Arkham City, however, so I can easily take them out and begin working on the others. There was a minigunner here who I was worried about, but I completely forgot that if you take over one of the drones, the zap is strong enough to take even one of them down in a single charge. I then played it how I've done every other encounter up to this point by using smoke and smarts, and within no time I reconnect Oracle to the mainframe. I return one final time to the police station, and for some reason only now does Scarecrow decide to have his forces attack. The first phase has 2 APCs roll up with some troops, and shortened to the point, I get overwhelmed and have to reset. Next try, I decide to fight smarter, not harder, and just hop in the nearby Batmobile and run them all over. I assure you they're all very much alive. This is then followed up by another combat encounter that I have to fight my way through in order to open the doors and get the Batmobile outside. By this point I am running out of ways to say, and then Batman walked into the room and knocked out a bunch of people, which by the way is exactly what happened. With the doors powered up and ready to be opened, it was time for the final tank battle. And oh boy, does it certainly feel that way. This is easily the greatest number of drones thrown at you at a single time in the game. This is meant to be circumvented by the fact that Oracle can hack drones, set off EMP blasts, or activate a chain of reaction of explosions which then take out certain marked drones. However, I found that trying to rely on her was not the best idea, as what effects she did seemed to be random. At one point I thought that maybe I could just stay inside the entrance to the station and shoot the drones from there, as they weren't moving, but the game decided to take this as me not initiating the fight, and as such the screen faded to white and was counted as a death. On another attempt, I managed to boost past them in hopes of using the funnel technique, but while it seemed promising at first, it didn't work for long as they would start spawning in behind me. If it wasn't obvious, I died many times here, to the point where I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to get past it. That was until one attempt when I dodged out of the way and ended up backing into one of these wooden boards that I completely forgot hid a small entryway into the back of the GCPD. With seemingly no other options available to me, I went through here to the back of the station and tried the funnel strategy one final time, and wouldn't you know it, it worked wonderfully. The narrow tunnel made it so only a few drones could aim at me at any given time, which made things pretty simple, if a little time consuming. I'm not going to complain though, as I was so tired of this part that I just wanted to be over. I was also able to hack a few drones to speed the process along just a little bit. The only part of this plan that was remotely worrying was when I had to come out to destroy the turrets, but thankfully I could shoot them without having to leave the safety of my tunnel. With the drones out of the way, it was onto the final phase of the defense of the GCPD, which is actually just another run-of-the-mill combat encounter, the only difference being 2 things. First off, Oracle is once again here to back us up, which means there's a lot of environmental takedowns up here that we can use to quickly incapacitate the militia. And secondly, in the final stage of the fight, these super versions of the brutes come in that seemingly have every weapon at their disposal. Now, they may seem intimidating, but really they go down just like any other brute with just 2 special takedowns. In fact, the only time I had to reset here was when this one dude thought he'd be like Captain America and whacked me with his shield. On the follow-up attempt, I just abused the hell out of the evade, and in no time I was finished and the police station was mostly saved, as let's be honest, the tanks really did a number on the building. There's no time to rest though, not when we're so close to the end of the game, as Scarecrow has made his way to the movie studio and has now captured Robin as well as Gordon from earlier. I then get a call from Scarecrow and follow the marker to his location, where I'm forced to disarm by taking off my utility belt and hopping in the back of a nearby van. This is a Batman story though, so before we get to the final mission, we need one last reminder that his parents are in fact still dead, and what better way to do that than a fear toxin-induced hallucination that is also filled to the brim with jokers. They act just like normal unarmed goons, so I dispatch them rather quickly and then without hesitation, snap the last one's neck. We are then greeted to a nice little callback to the intro of Arkham Asylum to show the games have sort of went full circle, and then Scarecrow unmasks Batman to the world, pumps him full of toxin, and now it's time to play as the Joker and straight up kill folks. I was originally just going to skim past this part as I thought from this point you couldn't get hurt. That turned out not to be the case, as in this first section some of the thugs can actually throw grenades at you that damage the car. Now that I know that though, I just gun down anyone who has a grenade before they can use it, and once I unleash all the missiles, I decide to head off on foot. Penguin gets cooked, Enigma gets riddled with bullets, and Two-Face turns into Commissioner Gordon. I then do some exploring of the inner workings of Batman's mind as the Joker, followed by a random horror scene that is actually kind of terrifying on your first playthrough, and then regain control of Batman and seal Joker inside this metaphor in absolute record time. Batman then overpowers the toxin because of how stubborn he is, Red Hood saves the day, Gordon delivers the weakest looking punch ever, the main story ends, and I prove you can indeed beat Batman Arkham Knight without taking any damage. Oh boy, that was very long. Easily the longest I've spent recording, writing the script, and editing one of these videos. But I don't mind. I enjoyed myself a lot. The only reason there was a 5-month gap between this video and Origins is because I wanted to make sure that I did it right. The Arkham Asylum video is in my opinion the most important video on the channel, as it was the first video to reach a larger audience and help my videos reach more people in general. For those of you who have been here since that video, I can't thank you enough. You're the reason the channel has become as big as it has, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Also, yes, I will do a video on Gotham Knights when it comes out, don't worry. Anyway, on with the outro. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and if you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe to one of these videos out every week. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.